Hello good people of YouTube and welcome to my hobby channel, and in this short video I'm going to take a look at the Barons War mounted knights and see if they'll fit any other horses. I'll also be talking through a rescue project for some old broken pre-slaughter Roman light cavalry and asking what I can do to make these riders more compatible with modern miniatures. I recently did an unboxing and building video for the Barons War mounted knights. And somebody asked in the comments whether or not the knights from that box would fit different horses, because you might not want the horses with all that cloth barding. And since I bought some light horses for a conversion project, and I had some of the Wargames Atlantic regular horses kicking around as well, I just thought I'd set about answering that question. So I have looked at these models before in some of my earlier videos way back when I started on my YouTube journey, and the regular horses that you'll find in this box here have already proved quite useful. So this is one of the regular horses, and as you can see it comes with some of the leather straps but no saddle cloth. The saddle cloth is actually separate, and if you glue it on, as I have done with this example here, you end up with a horse that looks like that. It's worth pointing out that the horses that you get in the General Accoutrements range are also the same horses that get used in the Conquistador cavalry or the Renaissance heavy cavalry. And in those box sets you can build miniatures like this. I think this is from the Renaissance heavy cavalry. So there's metal barding, there's armor for the horse's head, and there's sort of leather straps and barding for the back of the horse, and a different saddle cloth to fit a medieval rider. And that's this thing here. So this is the medieval style saddle, which just slots on the horse like that. Now, I do a lot of kit bashing and a lot of videos, so I've got these bits lying around. And if you build one of the Conquistador cavalry as opposed to the heavy Renaissance cavalry, you end up with a figure like this. And of course I've glued that to the saddle cloth I've just shown you, and that fits onto one of the horses from the General Accoutrement range. Now these horses are quite chunky. The saddle cloth that you glue on makes them even more chunky, and if you're using the Conquistador saddle as well, you end up with quite a wide horse that doesn't really fit anything. I've got a Victrix mounted knight here, and you can see how the feet lower down come up against the side of the horse, and how the saddle as well causes problems. The Victrix mounted knights don't have the saddles attached to the rider in the same way that the Barons War mounted knights do. There you actually glue the front and back of the saddle as a single piece into the model to complete the rider. But if you fancy doing a little bit of kit bashing and converting, then you might be able to use a Victrix mounted knight on a horse from the Wargames Atlantic General Accoutrements range and cobble something together if you didn't want your Victrix knights to be riding horses with cloth barding or caparisons. So that's the Victrix knight that I've got there, which does fit the horse from Wargames Atlantic, but you'd have to do a little bit of work. I've also got a Perry mounted knight now. This one I've built as a mounted medieval archer, so it will serve as a retinue or a squire or man-at-arms or something. And I've just blue tacked that onto the Perry horse. Now you do get more rider bodies in the Perry plastics than you do horses. I've bought more horses so that instead of getting 12 mounted knights out of a box, I think I can get 16 now. But if you don't want to mail order or buy the Perry horses separately. There is some scope for kit bashing again. The Perry mounted knights from the 100 Years' War range seem to come up against the legs of the rider. So if you want, you can cut the legs off and do some green stuffing, or you can just trim away at the sides of the horse, slot the rider on, glue it down, and then rebuild and repair the horse furniture with green stuff or milliput or whatever. So some modelling opportunities there if you don't mind doing a bit of converting. With Great Escape Games, if you were looking for extra horses, if you're wanting to use extra horses, if you were wanting to convert some of the gunfighters, you can twiddle around with the riders and get something that fits. You can sculpt your own saddles and saddle cloths and so on if you're looking to convert some Old West riders there. So there is some scope with these plastic horses from Wargames Atlantic. But what I like to use them for, and what I have used them for, is my old metal Lord of the Rings heroes. I think this is Irma, and he came on the same style of horse as this Royal Guard, Rohan Royal Guard. And there's something about the aesthetic of the original Lord of the Rings mounted heroes from the early 2000s that when you stick them on an official licensed plastic, you know, Rohan horse or Gondorian horse or whatever, they seem to just look a little bit insignificant. So there's a very minor scale difference between these two horses, or size difference. The Wargames Atlantic horse is slightly chunkier, slightly beefier. Now you can see I've stuck Irma on here with no saddle cloth, no saddle. I will work that detailing in with a bit of green stuff. I've primed the models, I've zenithal primed them, and I've given them an ink wash because I just wanted to make a start on this army. I've got a lot of these to paint, somewhere in the region of 20 or 30 riders of Rohan, and more than twice that in Warriors of Rohan, the foot version. So before I started my YouTube channel, I was churning out lots of these, but I was using the Wargames Atlantic horses as steeds or mounts for my heroes, because it just gives them that slight elevation. And yet I know some people will say, well, they brought out new models, the new models are better, and so on and so forth. Yeah, they are, and I've got them, and they're great, but I am a collector, so I like to keep the models that I had. I mean, these I bought when Lord of the Rings first came out, the Fellowship of the Ring and the Two Towers. So it's a collection of miniatures that I'm adding to. And just because a new rule set has come out for the War of the Rohirrim doesn't mean I'm going to turn my back on all these old beautiful models. So now I've covered the Wargames Atlantic horses, I'm going to put those to one side and talk about the Wargames Atlantic General Accoutrements Light Horses. Now, if you've seen my video on unboxing and building the Barons War mounted knights, you'll see how the horses came with separate heads. The reins were separate, no bridging of these reins here. If we just go back to the regular horses, you can see how those reins have been brought together to make a solid strip. That's very common with lots of horse models. That's a production requirement if your reins are part of the horse or the horse's head. So to get around that, Wargames Atlantic have developed these two-piece heads where the reins get glued onto the horse's head, and the reins also include the mouth. So check out my video on unboxing and building the Barons War mounted knights if you want to see how I construct a model like that. If you've got a Barons War mounted knight on a horse with a caparison or cloth barding and you don't want cloth barding, will it fit any other horse? Yes. Put simply, the gait looks good from the front. The width of the rider's legs, there's no big spaces that you need to fill. There's a saddle cloth already on there, and of course the medieval design of the saddle is actually part of the rider. So to answer that question, yes, you can get yourself a box of Wargames Atlantic General Accoutrements Light Horses. There are 18 horses in a box that you can build, and you can mount your Barons War mounted knights on the back of horses that don't have any barding. I can think of lots of uses for this. If you want to build a retinue of mounted sergeants, if you want barons that perhaps aren't that wealthy, or you're looking at a period in history where the caparison or the cloth barding was dispensed with, the Wargames Atlantic Light Horses are just an ideal substitute, and I for one will certainly be using these sprinkled amongst my medieval mounted troops, because every knight will have a retinue and not every horse in the retinue would be equipped with a caparison or cloth barding. So I'm really looking forward to doing some converting and kit bashing with those light horses. I can show you here that actually the Victrix knight would fit. The legs are a little wider apart, but that gives you an opportunity to get some sort of sloping in the saddle, and all you'd have to do is take some green stuff and just sculpt the front and back visible parts of the saddle if you wanted to kit bash those two elements together. And just to show you the mounted archer from Perry Miniatures, taller, thinner sculpt perhaps, but it looks good. You know, not every horse was a big war horse, and I think kit bashing and mixing and matching like that would make a very interesting and unique looking unit. And although I did this maybe a year ago, I just want to compare the light horse against the Perry horse. The Perry horses seem to have slightly bigger heads, but there are plenty of differences with the horse breeds that you see today, and I think they'd look fine when they're painted. If you're a bit worried that maybe the hooves and the ankles look a bit skinny, you can add some green stuff there to create some hair around the tops of the hooves, or just enlarge the feet. So the last thing that I wanted to do, just show you how I'm taking some of these old pre-slaughter historical, I don't know if they're Roman cavalry or what. I need to research them, because I just picked them up in a bag. I got these off a friend of mine, but most of the horses are broken. I haven't got the time or the energy to pin 25mm horses with hooves and ankles that are that skinny. I really haven't. So I'm like, no, I'm not going to bother. I've got 4 horses that are in a reasonably good condition, and if you compare them to a Lord of the Rings horse, you'll see they're slightly smaller. Might be good if I want to convert some of the Lord of the Rings halflings and get them riding horses. This horse is, I think, a similar size to the horse that pulls Gandalf's cart. In my collection, I've got some old 25mm and 28mm white metal carts kicking around, so I can always look at converting and kit bashing something that might prove useful. The broken horses won't go to waste. If I can repair some of them, I probably will, especially the ones that still have most of their legs in place. But those that are perhaps a bit more awkward, a bit more time consuming, I'm very tempted to make some kind of cavalry wound marker with those, or perhaps a horse casualty for Pellinor Fields or something. So these won't go to waste, these will get used. It's just I'm not prepared to invest the time and energy that would be required in fixing these so that they can carry their original Roman riders again. And that brings me to the light horse from Wargames Atlantic, because these riders fit these light horses beautifully. Now I may have to do a little bit of tweaking, a tiny bit of fettling to get the cloaks to rest against the horse's back convincingly, but basically that's a good enough start for me. And if you just compare how tiny the horse that they were originally manufactured with, or the horse that they were originally intended to ride, how tiny that horse looks, I think swapping it out for a plastic Wargames Atlantic horse will be great. You can see 25mm, 28mm historical, which is, you know, smaller than 28mm fantasy or 28mm heroic. That's a pretty good match in terms of size and scale, and I'm certainly happy with that. As always, thanks very much for watching. I hope you found this video useful. If you did, please smash that like button. Please hit subscribe for more videos like this. And if you choose to leave a comment, please make sure your comments are kind and respectful. And finally, take care of yourselves, and I'll see you in the next one.